Welcome to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's story is part 5 of the fantastic series I have been tracking a bounty hunter's story ever since 2016. As ever, please do let us know down below in the comments what you thought. Please do like and share, it really does help build the channel and the community further. And of course, don't forget to hashtag TeamFEAR. If you yourself have a story you'd like to share with us here on the show, whether it be true or fictional piece, please do get that over to me at the website, of course, which is dmtforestofear.com. Now, without further ado, let's get into tonight's story, entitled I have been tracking a bounty hunter's story ever since 2016. Part 5. Let's get straight into that. This journal is a continuation of part 3. Title: Poltergeist. Posted by Crimson on January 5th, 2012. On October the 3rd, I decided it was time to get off my arse and visit the haunted school I'd been anticipating to see. College classes had been a pain and didn't let me have the time to go, but I had that free weekend to get the job done. The area was far, around 1 hour away from home, but the possibility of me scoring another good hunt justified all the trouble. My parents were out for a wedding. I had no school nor stupid commitments. The day was perfect for my little adventure. I remember I waited for it to be 7 PM. I grabbed my cheap gym bag and threw in a flashlight with 4 extra batteries, a printed copy of a prayer glued to the back of a small Bible, for good luck I guess, and a bunch of plastic containers, but nothing special, really. It felt like winter. The fucking place is out in the open, and it gets extremely chilling out there. Add the coldness to the change in temperature when a true ghost is present, you would probably start to experience Raynaud's syndrome. I decided to take my leather jacket to at least keep myself warm enough and not look like a total fool in a hoodie wandering around the land. That was about it. There was no rocket science when you deal with spirits, as far as I knew back then. All I had to do was get to the location X, cite the prayer, and the last thing you know is that the evil spirit is getting dragged to another dimension by an unknown force. I was walking back and forward, downstairs to upstairs, until my alarm hit 9 PM. I saw through my window, and it was extremely dark outside. I stopped rehearsing my chant, left, and locked the house. It indeed took me around an hour to get there on a motorcycle. It was foreign land to me. I saw a big old house that had an unusual yellow paint on its roof, as the local Ghostbuster stories tell. That house is where the owner of the land lives, and he has the key to the school gates. The house lights were off, so I supposed he was asleep at this time. Outside the town was windy, not many trees, but more of what a rural area should look like. Many private acres of land owned by different people, and a very crappy road filled with cow shit and insects. Stupid insects were all over, splashed on my helmet, so I had to take it off and put it in a bag, making it heavier. I got to the yellow-roofed house, and there was a man outside looking at the gate that leads to a large concrete building at a distance. The old man looked at me with an irritated, angry voice and yelled at me to go away, that he was fed up with constant ignorance, he said. He was ranting but sounded very tired, and, to top it off, he said he was going to call the cops if I was going to be a nuisance. I really didn't want to push my luck, so I just turned back and left. Yeah, I just went around his territory, making as least noise as possible, and parked a bit outside his land. I hid my motorcycle next to a yellow car and a very old truck. The darkness did not let me see clearly too much of both vehicles, but they caught my attention. What were they doing here? Did these belong to another landowner? Questions like that popped into my mind so naturally, I was curious. At this point, I looked like a thief because I was glancing to see the dirty red Ford. There was a glossary on its rear mirror, and the paint job on the truck was already coming off. Other than that, the seats looked ripped through. On the other hand, the small yellow car looked brand new, and, I had a bunch of junk food inside and beer bottles. Crickets were loud that night. The bird noises, the insects, the land was alive. It almost felt like a warning to keep humans away. I sort of knew where I was positioned. I knew the direction of where the school building was, and it looked like the people from the truck and the car were also headed that way. The ground was muddy, and there were footprints that pointed east where the school was. I could tell there were at least 3 people, but I just followed a small pair of shoes. As I got into the grass territory, I lost the other pair of footprints. It looked like they went another direction, and at this time, I regretted not having brought another water on me. My lips were drying off quickly, and I was beginning to feel thirsty. I began seeing the building now closer. I stopped following the footprints and began walking towards the school. It felt like something was staring back, and the ambient just made a knot in my throat. Branches were snapping as I walked over them, and the insect noise were growing louder to the point I felt like I was listening to distant roars, while the birds over me were moving the tree branches along with their leaves. After a short walk, I was finally beside the infamous Golden School, a 3-story building made of concrete, vandalized, broken windows on the 2nd and 3rd floor, a big wooden door entrance, and a very humble playground on the side. I did not get any closer though. I leaned on the tree behind me and sat down. I wanted to make sure the old man did not see me from wherever he was at, and so I remained hidden for a while. It was around 10:40 at that point, I think. I opened my bag and made sure the flashlight worked by replacing its batteries. I had my phone in my pocket and the Bible fitted in the pocket of my jacket. The school was a creepy yet fascinating sight, very hypnotizing in my own opinion. However, there was this sense of uneasiness when looking through the 2nd floor's broken windows. It gave you a very menacing impression. Something was not right in that building. I was feeling nervous as hell. I had experience dealing with spirits in abandoned houses, but that school looked straight off a horror movie. Last thing I fucking wanted was to almost get a heart attack when I saw how a guy looked out of a window laughing and fooling around. I jumped out of surprise and cursed him in silence. He looked like a teenager, and I began hearing a laugh of a girl that was probably behind him. They were alive, I am sure, and messing around, playing in the devil's den. Jesus Christ, I thought. I could not get inside and perform the exorcism with those 2 in there, primarily because they would talk to the authorities or expose my work or identity. I don't want publicity, so I just waited, and eventually I fell asleep. It was a very peaceful atmosphere if you closed your eyes and relaxed. To me, it passed around 10 seconds before yelling and screaming woke me up, as running individuals passed near my spot. "Joe, wait for me!" The girl desperately screamed at a distance. Her and the guy's running footsteps faded as the angry wind blew my dizziness away. I checked my phone to see the time, and it indicated 3:02 a.m. How was it possible that I was unconscious for that long? I was confused, but still, I dragged my body and picked up my bag, flashlight on hand, and began walking towards the school. The school seemed bigger than before. Not only that, the playground seemed alive. The swing sets were moving as the wind pushed them, and the different wooden play sets were also to some extent moving by themselves. As I finally got near the front door, 2 figures emerged from the other side of the building, walking towards me. For fuck's sake, I thought out loud. I could not handle losing more time, and I was already very annoyed when I saw these 2 people. One was holding a very colourful green water gun. As I pointed the flashlight at it, at first glance, I thought they were part of a church, or since I saw their outfits first. Notice how I said outfit instead of uniform. Those outfits were straight from a Halloween costume store. There was a girl wearing a blank mask, dressed like a nun. Her pale hands and legs looked like there were meshes in the dark concrete walls, while the guy, taller than her, the same mask, was wearing a pastor outfit without sleeves. "You gotta be fucking kidding me," I told him in a soothing tone. "What are you doing here?" both the guy and me said at the same time. His voice was calm while mine was irritated. The still dark night didn't allow me to see him and her perfectly. I had to turn off the flashlight because I wasn't sure how long it was going to last, and recharging would cost time. The guy walked closer to me, and I noticed he was about my height and looked somewhat jacked. "Look, bro, just give me 20 minutes inside here. After that, you and your girlfriend, you can do whatever you want to do in there." I told him, trying to dismiss them. I was hurried because I did not know if my parents were coming today or tomorrow, and was not in the mood at the moment to make small talk. "Who the fuck are you?" His voice grew louder and more confronting too. We got closer and began arguing. None of us truly said what exactly we were doing there. I was telling him that it was none of their business, and I was saying nonsense at that point. The girl beside him was off though. She never said a word. Instead, she was looking up the whole time and zoned out of our encounter. After a couple of seconds, she touched the guy's arm, grabbing his attention, and she signalled to him to look up. We paused. Both of us looked up, and I was petrified to see a large humanoid shadowy figure with very long hands and deformed face looking at us from the second floor. It was meters away from us, but it still felt that it was very close to me, and it could grab me and crush me if it wanted. Its expression on its face was not visible, but something inside of me said that it had a big wide smile on its disproportionate head. It quickly went inside after all three of us noticed it. My throat got colder, and my feet did not want to move. That second of seeing that shadow felt like an eternity engraved in my mind. The guy looked back at me. I looked at the eye sockets of his mask and said to him sincerely in the best tone, "Let me handle it." He also lowered his guard, and I guess he saw through me. He said that they were there for the same reason, and that we could do this together. I did not see a problem with it. I believed him, or wanted to believe him at that point. I can be very hot-headed, but 3 is better than 1. I do things alone, but that monster, I did not want to do that alone. I opened the door and got inside. The two of them began walking towards the door after checking their backpacks, but the door was closed very quickly by its own. Out of shock, I began walking backwards facing the door. That door sound really hurt my ears, not to mention my heart pounded all the way up to my throat. If I had noticed something in all of my experience with spirits or evil, it's that silence is their key weapon to make you feel uneasy. Although the windows were broken, you could not hear shit inside the building beside your own breath. As I walked towards the stairs to get this whole nightmare over, I was hearing how something was mimicking my footsteps on the second floor. The second floor was made out of wood. It was squeaking old wood. The thing, or whatever it was directly above me, moving towards anywhere that I was going. I walked 3 steps and stopped. It also stopped. I began quickly walking towards the end of the hall, and it also followed me. Halfway there, a staircase in front of me. I stopped and grabbed a concrete piece at the side and threw it above me to the ceiling. I was extremely annoyed. The chant does not work until I have visible contact with a spirit. Otherwise, it doesn't seem to work, in case you are wondering why I was not doing anything other than walking towards that monster. A moment of silence followed the rock when it fell back to the ground. During that moment, I noticed how all the rooms in the school were not completely shut. They were opened a little bit, enough for someone to see you through the thin visible line between the door and the wall. My bravery flew away from me and my soul as I began hearing how it above me started running towards the stairs. It was running towards me, and my whole body froze in time. I pointed the flashlight at the stairs, and the stomps of the ghost were getting closer and closer. All the doors in my floor closed while this thing was going down the stairs until it stopped. Nothing other than the cold air glued me to the surface of my skin. I looked around me. The hall was dull, but I felt the presence of something observing me. I climbed the stairs, and they were dusty and needed maintenance. Who knows how old that school was, and as I reached the second floor, I felt that I was back on the first floor again. Everything looked similar, but there was no big wooden door behind me. The hall was similar, but the classrooms were all closed except one. I took out my phone to see the time, but it didn't turn on. My phone wasn't working. It was very hot to the touch. I walked towards the classroom with the door opened, knowing that sooner than later, the motherfucker would appear. Chairs were spread around the classroom, leaving the middle empty where some clothing was laying around the floor. I imagined it was from the clowns that came earlier. The clothes didn't seem to be old or dirty, but were very cold. On the teacher's desk, there was an old photograph. It showed a middle-aged man holding a diploma. He was smiling, but there were pen marks that drew horns and a moustache on his face. On the back of the picture, it said in very messy handwriting, "Pig." I settled my bag behind the desk carefully so that the glasses don't break. I took out the small Bible, but as soon as I pulled it out, it was taken away from my hand and landed on one of the corners of the room. As I looked back, the chairs began moving towards me slowly. A bunch of air entered the room from a broken window, and the whole damn building felt like a freezer. I began citing a prayer, but the chairs began launching at me. They were made of wood and hit the walls hard. One of them managed to hit my arm, and it hurt like a son of a bitch. I ran out of the room and closed the door, leaving my bag behind. Even though I did not see what was going on inside, I felt the chairs hidden and stacking behind the door, as I was pushing with my whole body, holding the door until they stopped. I laughed out loud and out of relief, but not a moment passed after I felt something grab me from my jacket and threw me with all of its force to the other side of the hall. I landed on my shoulder and did not even have a chance to react before I got dragged to my feet again and back to the classroom door that was now open. I tried yelling a prayer once again, but a chair that was now out in the hall launched at me as a projectile, and I covered my face. I had tears in my eyes. I had tears in my face. I'm not going to lie. The thing stopped grabbing me, and I tried standing up. The shadow was now more visible. It was humanoid and had a marked grin on its deformed face. It grabbed me again and pushed me from wall to wall. I felt like fainting. It would not even let me speak at all. It finally stopped and was just holding me up in the air, pushed back to the wall. Its long hands that were so damn cold were around my neck. I was pushed against the wall and I saw its face, the eyes completely black, the skin melted and stitch marks around its mouth. It was mad. Yeah, I could tell that it was angry. I realised that this was the end of the road for me. I smiled at it, spitting blood at its face and gave him a chuckle. I wasn't scared. I had accepted my fate anyway. The adrenaline of that hunt was rushing in my blood. I wanted to live, but I ran out of luck, I thought. I closed my eyes as life was leaving my body, and once again I heard my grandmother praying. And I tried to pray with her, out loud, but the spirit pushed me again harder to the wall, and I was silenced, and everything was blurry. A few drops of water hit my face, and I was let go from the force holding me up. I landed on my arse and began feeling all of the pain resonating in my body. I saw the priest shooting water at the spirit. It looked very dumb, but somehow the shadow was retrieving, and all of the chairs began coming out of the classroom. The other classroom doors were making noises as if the other chairs were also trying to get out. The priest threw the water gun to the floor and began citing a chant that was different but had the same kind of familiar Latin tone. The chairs began launching at him and me too. I began moving, dodging, and got to my feet despite the pain. I could not yell, but I tried my best at citing my own words. Another figure came up the stairs, and it was this time the nun, holding a crucifix on her hands, yelling the same prayer the priest was saying. The shadow threw a chair at the priest that hit his leg, making him drop down. I got closer, and one of the chairs hit the nerve of my elbow. It hurt so bad that I got really mad. I began screaming so loud the prayer I knew. The spirit began twitching in pain, yelling a three-dimensional scream. The whole building felt like it was vibrating. The chairs were now sloppy, and the spirit felt weak as it was twitching on the floor and yelling in anger. All three of us continued praying until the spirit launched to the ceiling and then dropped with the same intensity to the floor. I knew it was that force. It was trying to drag it to another dimension. The spirit was yelling in pain, but there was a sorrow in its voice. It was saying,
"It wasn't me. Don't let me go, please. It wasn't me."
It launched into the air again and then got dragged down with such force that the floor trembled. I think I saw bright sparks and the smell of something burning as the spirit got dragged to somewhere else. A bunch of goo spread to the hall as the spirit splashed to the floor one last time. Bingo! I was so damn relieved, but I could not move too much, as I felt I had a couple of broken bones. I looked at the priest and he looked back to me. We both laughed like maniacs. The nun came running to the priest, very preoccupied. She had a very soft voice. The guy told her something and she left downstairs. I got up and went for my bag with all the soreness in the world. And once I came back, I dropped to the floor and began taking out the flasks to get all of the ectoplasm in. The priest looked at me confused at what I was doing, but he offered his help. I didn't care at that point. After all, the flasks were filled except for one. I crawled to the wall to stay seated straight. He got up and told me that I had to go to hospital, but I didn't want to go. Not to mention trespassing criminal charges, but also the trouble with my parents. I didn't want to get past that. Somehow, I knew that visiting the fortune teller was the right idea, but I was in no position to ride a motorcycle. All of this was going on in my head until the priest broke his silence. "I'm Mick. What's your name?" he said, offering me a hand to stand up. I opened my mouth, but I chuckled a bunch of vomit. "Hey, take it easy, man. That was a hell of a poltergeist." He tried to get me on my feet, and I got a good look at him. He had taken off his mask, and I saw a very young man with ginger hair and blue eyes. His long hair reached his chin, but despite a big scar on his mouth, he had a very friendly face. We went to the classroom, and I sat down in one of the chairs. I picked up my small Bible I had in my pocket. The nun soon entered the classroom as she followed Mick's voice. She was no longer wearing her mask nor the veil. As she got closer to me to also give me a pain pill, I noticed she had long brown wavy hair and brown eyes. A very pretty, round and angelic face, but was giving me a killer stare. She quickly turned to Mick, saying that she felt there was no longer any presence in the building. I asked them if they were hunters too, but they looked at me again confused. Mick said that they were vanished exorcists from a secret Catholic order. They made a living by exorcising ghosts or any type of spirits that caused trouble in the United States. Mick got closer to me as he grabbed the picture that was on top of the desk and handed me a bottle of fresh water that the girl had in a bag. I began drinking like there was no tomorrow. He said that her name was Mary, and she was his sister by blood. Both had been raised to become exorcists from a very young age, but did not tell me why or where they vanished. I did not want to ask. He asked me if I was an exorcist too. I just answered, sort of, and that I just wanted what the ghost left behind, as I pointed at a bag filled with the goo flasks. He laughed and said that ectoplasm does not make a good souvenir. It quickly disappears, or just looks like a spiderweb if it doesn't get conserved right. Mary was looking outside the window, and said that the lights of the old man's house were on, and that we should leave before the cops came, just in case. I grabbed my bag, and Mick helped me get to the motorcycle in safety. The land was quiet, peaceful. The freezing loud wind had gone away. The birds and bugs were making noise again. They got me into their truck, and it smelled like cherries in there, but there was no source of smell as far as I could see. Mary began driving and was constantly changing the radio station, and the truck stumbled onto the stupid road. The seats were as rough as I thought, and were grasping my back with each bump of the road. Mick had asked me where to take me, and I gave him the directions of the fortune teller, just to give her all the shit we had gathered. My gut was telling me that this was the right thing to do. The clock indicated that it was 6:50 a.m. I checked my phone to see if that was working, and now it was working. When we got to the fortune teller's house, I noticed the damn cat was outside on top of the billboard. He quickly jumped towards the house and got inside by an open window. We got out and rang the bell. The door opened, and the woman looked very distressed after seeing how fucked up we all looked. She began asking questions of what happened. You know, all that sort of stuff. Mick explained that we were against the poltergeist, and explained everything that had happened. She looked very mortified, as if she were deciding what to do, and eventually got a small flask. She had inside a lockbox that she hid in one of her drawers. She said that she owed my father too much, and that it's only paying a debt she had. Once I drank the liquid thinking it was some sort of medicine, I began feeling so much pain in my bones and in my throat. It was burning inside of me. I wanted to scream so loud, but held it in. It was unbelievable. I let out a couple of tears because it did hurt inside really bad. And after a couple of seconds, all of the pain went away. I mean, all the pain gone away. Mick and Mary looked at me in shock, speechless. The woman got a mirror and showed me my face. It was me. My mouth was covered in blood, but I had no marks. It just looked like I was wearing Halloween blood. I could walk like nothing. I wasn't sore no more. I do not know what sort of shit that was, but it was incredible. She smiled at me and said that it was a potion, a very potent one that uses very specific materials, ectoplasm being one of them. I was so grateful. I also told her that I'd brought more of the goo, and she was surprised but told me that she could not pay for it. Mick asked how much it was worth, and while Mary began playing with the cat on the other side, I felt that I owed Mick and his sister that much, and so I decided to split the earnings of whatever I was going to gain. However, Mick said not to worry about it. They had finished their contract and would not leave town empty-handed. He offered me to take me back to my motorcycle, but I refused. We stayed a little longer, and the fortune teller told us that she is a retired alchemist. Apparently, there are sorcerers, alchemists and witches walking among us. They are actively working with materials in order to use for forbidden magic. I was directed to another sorcerer in another town that is very far from here. His name is Joseph. He serves as a transaction medium between a secret market and other sorcerers. He would be willing to buy and was looking for people to give a contract if I was interested. By now, I should tell you that the fortune teller's name is Lisa. She was nice enough to take me back by my motorcycle. I could not help to ask what she meant by owing my father too much. Lisa only said that they were friends since high school, and that he had supported her ever since he discovered she was playing with magic. Other people made fun of her, and he defended her in the worst of cases. Noble, but I felt she was lying, or that there was more to what that story was than that. Anyways, all of that just to come back home empty-handed. I thought that that was the end of my extracurricular activities. I realised I could not do things alone. I could get myself killed if I encounter another poltergeist. Who knows? Maybe something worse. I was staring at the flasks of goo. I wanted to pour them in a sink to leave this life behind, but my doorbell rang. I came to the door and opened it. Motherfucker Mick was there, now in normal clothes, looking happy to see me. He said that he got the money from his contract and wanted to share. I refused and was just confused on how the fuck he got to my house. Apparently, Lisa told him. He asked me if I wanted to go and visit the sorcerer. Him and his sister were going to that city in case I wanted to tag along, and they could use my help. It's been a month since that happened, and lots of shit has happened ever since. I have abandoned school and moved out of that house. I told my parents I got an internship in medical research out of town, that I would be away for a long time. I know it's a lie, but I don't want to tell them the truth. I still keep in touch with them, but I know this lie won't hold up forever. Working along with Mick and Mary has been a very fascinating experience. There is more to the church than what books tell us. Poltergeists, wraiths, ghosts, spirits, animal spirits, and everything is nuts. We are making good money out of this too, and maybe I can convince them to ditch that old shit truck for a pair of motorcycles. While we are travelling together, we do not live together. We settle in motels. I always go for a different room. Each one of us has a different bank account where we split our earnings. We have shared strategies and exchange information on types of ghosts we've encountered. The prayer I say apparently is Hebrew, not Latin. Mick has been a really good friend. He plans everything ahead of time, unlike me. They don't talk too much about their family, nor their past, but neither do I. We are a good team, despite his sister Mary not talking to me at all. She and her brother are well coordinated, but she works mostly on her laptop, researching about wherever she researches, and whatever she researches. not bothered at all, really. It's been good writing this. I'll post whenever something out of the ordinary happens, since ghost stories are boring, in my opinion. By the way, happy birthday, Lisa. Wow, awesome addition there, Wolfscrown, the author. Thank you so much once again for allowing me to make a rendition of your awesome work. Guys and girls, you know the drill. As ever, please do let us know down below in the comments what you thought. Please do like and share. It really does help build the channel and our community further. And of course, don't forget to hashtag TeamFEAR. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, what are you waiting for? Slap that subscribe button and throat punch the notification bell to stay up to date with all DMT Forest Affair posts and videos. I hope you're all well and happy, and above all, remember, be safe, not sorry.